Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. JTA expresses optimism on retention of teachers. Health Minister says the country is preparing to deal with Mpox cases. And later in sports, Cavalier and Mount Pleasant FC to clash in CONCACAF Caribbean Club Championship later today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kerry-Ann Simpson. Here are the details. Newly installed president of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Dr. Mark Smith, feels majority of the country's teachers will remain in the profession if they get good pay. Smith commented on the migration issue plaguing the country during his opening address at the 60th annual JTA conference on Monday. He reiterated that the teaching profession as it stands is far from attractive, hence the reason so many teachers are opting to migrate. Teacher migration is one of the topical issues being discussed at this year's JTA conference as the Education Minister continues to grapple with the situation. Just last month, Acting Chief Education Officer Terry-Ann Thomas Gale revealed that teachers are being sought from various countries such as Nigeria, Ghana, Philippines and India amid the local teacher shortage. However, newly installed President of the JTA, Dr. Mark Smith, is proposing that the issue can be resolved when the remuneration packages for educators become more attractive.
How in 2024 is this still a struggle in Jamaica? Minister, the majority of our teachers will stay if they are better paid.
He added that on average, a teacher makes $35 per day, and that is far from a livable income. It is why he is tasking the Ministry of Education to lobby for teachers as a trend cannot continue.
Our schools are struggling to keep pace with the migration of highly skilled teachers, often in the primary and STEM areas. Our present reality is a precarious one at best, despite possessing the local capacity within our teacher training institutions. You often can't get people through the door. We're seeing dwindling numbers. The profession is just not attractive.
Meanwhile, President of Education International also weighed in on the issue. He emphasized that in order to combat teacher migration, their working conditions must be improved.
The improvement of working condition is very key because the panel has emphasized the need for decent working condition and competitive wages for our teachers. We believe that this will help to attract and retain the teachers in the profession. We believe if you continue with your teacher professional development as part of the recommendation of the United Nations High Panel, you will be able to address some of the problems of demands and supply in the country.
In his keynote address, he noted that the EI stands ready to assist the local education ministry.
As Education International, we stand in you in addressing these challenges, and we provide toolkits on Go Public Fund Education campaign. The toolkits will assist you with a multifaceted approach, including improving teacher salaries, working conditions, investing in teacher training, and exploring innovative solutions. We also have developed toolkits to help the lobbying for the implementation of the recommendation from United Nations Secretary General's high-level panel on the teaching profession.
The Office of Utilities Regulation, OUR, has launched a probe into the unusually high electricity bills that have been issued to many customers. This is particularly after the passage of Hurricane Beryl. The regulator says it received numerous complaints from customers expressing concerns about the sudden surge in their electricity bills. The OUR says it has taken steps to thoroughly investigate these complaints and determine the cause of the high bills. It also requested relevant information from the Jamaica Public Service JPS, which will be analyzed to determine what regulatory intervention is necessary. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton is assuring Jamaicans that the health system is preparing to deal with any potential cases of Mpox. This following the World Health Organization's WHO declaration of the disease as a public health emergency of international concern. Dr. Tufton said he met with the technical team from the ministry and the 4 regional health authorities yesterday to discuss the WHO's declaration and the country's response to the growing global health threat. The minister emphasized that the Emergency Management Committee of the ministry is on high alert and ready to coordinate a swift and effective response to any cases of mpox that may be detected in the country. The Auditor General is being called on to investigate reports of mismanagement into the Cannabis Licensing Authority, which is responsible for regulating Jamaica's ganja and hemp industry. Opposition spokesman on investment Anthony Hilton made the call following recent media reports of serious concerns among CLA staff about the promotion of unqualified and inexperienced individuals to senior positions. These concerns are accompanied by allegations of malfeasance by the agency's management. Mr. Hilton further criticized the board's failure to address the ongoing issues, which have resulted in a high turnover rate among personnel.
A year after the decisions have been made in hiring and firing, and I believe it is just too little, too late, and the horse has long bolted from the proverbial barn. In any event, a fresh start is needed, and we believe that we need a new board in place. The opposition is demanding that a new board be put in place, and that the Auditor General investigates these practices at the board and the allegations of malfeasance at the agency.
The opposition is again blasting Prime Minister Andrew Holness for the muzzle he has put on government members of parliament in relation to matters involving the Integrity Commission. The Integrity Commission says some 8 parliamentarians are now being investigated for illicit enrichment. Speaking at the Central St. Mary Constituency Conference on the weekend, PNP General Secretary Dr. Dayton Campbell says the position of the Prime Minister is one which should be reviewed.
Who wanted to come out and say, I am not under investigation and clear their name. Look here, illicit enrichment, I see or something, you know. You have somebody who owns something that them pay cannot explain how them get it. You have decent people on the JLP side that wanted to come out and say, I am not under investigation. And the Prime Minister of the country put a gag on them and say, shut your mouth, you can't say nothing.
And again, Dr. Campbell has taken aim at Mr. Holness over the non-certification of his statutory declarations.
They might run Jamaica like it's a banana republic. In no self-respecting country is that acceptable. Time come now to usher him out. We don't want a Prime Minister who cannot be certified by the Integrity Commission. And the Jamaica Labour Party is a disgrace for having a leader who cannot be certified and then move him and replace him with somebody else.
The earthquake unit has confirmed that a 4.5 magnitude earthquake shook sections of Jamaica Tuesday morning. The unit described the earthquake as light. It occurred at 3:20 a.m. with the epicenter approximately 20 kilometers north of Port Antonio, Portland. Persons in Portland, St. Thomas, Kingston and St. Andrew reported feeling the tremor. There were no reports of structural damage. This is the second earthquake reported in the last few days. Last week, a magnitude 5.4 quake shook sections of the country with minor structural damage reported. And it's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Foreign Affairs Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith has dismissed claims that the government has neglected the youth of the country. Mrs. Johnson-Smith was speaking at the National Youth Dialogue on the Summit of the Future recently. It was organized by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, the Ministry of Education and Youth, and the United Nations UN in Jamaica. Mrs. Johnson-Smith emphasized that various programs have been implemented to support and empower young people.
The government of Jamaica is committed to thinking and acting in the interests of present and future generations and embedding intergenerational dialogue in our current decision-making. And this is why we have done things like establishing the National Youth Advisory Council. It's why when we created the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council, we didn't simply add 2 young people to represent the youth voice on it. We created a Global Jamaica Diaspora Youth Council as well to make sure that the youth agenda could be pursued across all areas of interest to young people. And we also, of course, re-energized the Youth Parliament and even held the all-female sitting of the House of Parliament, which I particularly enjoyed, among other initiatives, which are institutional steps at raising and embedding the voice of young people.
In the meantime, Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Marcia Smith, wants young people to take advantage of the vast opportunities available to them. She was speaking at the National Youth Dialogue on the Summit of the Future recently in Kingston, where she emphasized that understanding the present is crucial before planning for the future.
That the government has mainstreamed youth issues through financing of the various programs that target young persons. A discussion relating to the youth without a discussion relating to how the country is run from a government perspective in terms of financing will be an incomplete discussion.
Ms. Smith also stressed that young people must be aware of the resources and support offered by non-governmental organizations, which can provide vital assistance in education, skills development, and entrepreneurship.
Issues relating to youth are issues that everyone has a concern about, and the thrust and the initiatives do not only come from the government, they come from non-governmental organizations. So you must have an awareness as to what is the register of NGOs that the Office of the Companies Office has. What does the Department of Cooperatives and Friendly Societies have to say as to the register of the various societies and groups that have at their mandate youth-related initiatives?
It's now time for the Business Minute.
Guardian Group says it made a higher profit of $168.28 million Trinidadian dollars in its second quarter ended June 2024. The insurance company, which is a member of the NCB Financial Group, made $124.17 million TT dollars in post-tax earnings for the similar period last year. The performance brings the 6 months earnings to $404.95 million TT dollars. As for revenues, Guardian made $1.45 billion TT dollars, up from $1.34 billion. Further afield, new survey data released on Monday shows Americans are starting to feel increasingly worried about losing their jobs. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York's latest survey on consumer labor market experiences and expectations showed job, wage, and benefits satisfaction all sank in July. It also found the average expected likelihood of becoming unemployed rose to 4.4%. That's the highest on record for the survey, which was started 10 years ago. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Shane Masters.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, Trinidad and Tobago's ruling People's National Movement has flatly rejected a proposal for a fixed election date. The Twin Island States National Advisory Committee on Constitutional Reform proposed that a general election should be held every 5 years on the date fixed by the Constitution. But the PNM says it may be impractical for the removal of the discretion for the calling of a general election from the leadership. At present, general election dates are determined by the Prime Minister. On the matter of the country's final appellate court, the PNM called for the removal of the UK-based Privy Council, with the Caribbean Court of Justice being its replacement. On the international scene, the bodies of 6 Israeli hostages have been retrieved from Gaza. Israel's military and security agency says forces returned the bodies during a military operation overnight. The bodies have all been identified and their families and communities have been notified. The military says 5 of them were killed while being held in Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu offered his condolences to the families. And India's top court on Tuesday set up a national task force of doctors who will make recommendations on the safety of healthcare workers at their workplaces days after the rape and killing of a trainee doctor that sparked public outrage and nationwide protests. The Supreme Court said the doctors' panel will frame guidelines for ensuring safety and protection of medical professionals and healthcare workers across the country. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Nikinsky Robinson.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report with Jerry Main Brown.